Good morning and welcome back to Divorcee Cafe. This is our little weekly chat, I guess you might want to say. And today we're going to go back to the beginning because I think for those of you, it's important to see how the journey goes from when you're stuck in your marriage, when you make the decision to get divorced, and how that trajectory goes and filing for divorce, and then how the steps go afterwards. So we're going to go back to the beginning and of my journey, and I have to tell you, it's not really my favorite space to be because it's been almost 11 years, and I don't like to go into that headspace. And yeah, so I guess we should start and dive in. My marriage probably could be summed up in one word as dysfunctional. I married a Turkish man in 2001, and then we moved here to Salt Lake right after. Literally, we got married and then got on a plane and moved here on Pioneer Day. What a surprise to show up in Salt Lake City from the East Coast on Pioneer Day and not see anybody on the streets. It was very odd. Didn't exactly know where I had moved to. And within the first few months of us being married and moving into this new environment, we were in marriage counseling and therapy. That didn't last very long because my ex at that time felt that the therapist was siding too much with my side of the dysfunction and my issues rather than his. And pretty much in a nutshell, the downfall of our marriage was the disconnect over moving back to Turkey. And I didn't want to, not because I never wanted to move to Turkey, but that the plans were not realistic as far as their implementation. And he truly missed his family and really felt isolated and alone the further he was from his family over in Turkey, that it created this great need and agitation to move back. So pretty much our marriage was him living in the future, 10 or 15 years in the future for when we would actually move back, and me trying to live in the present and pulling him back. Fast forward 7 or 8 years, and then we had Mina, and that kind of exacerbated the situation because he was up for tenure, and then there's a baby, and there was pressure to get a house, and he just felt really locked in here, which created a lot of anger. And he kind of isolated himself from me and Mina, and it just wasn't a healthy experience. And as much as my marriage was dysfunctional, I did try to ask for help from family members over the years. And I don't know if you're familiar with the Turkish culture, but Turkish culture really doesn't want to see dysfunction in marriages or see what's it called? See any solutions. So, it was a little tricky. I'd say, hey, I need some support. I need you to talk to your son, and I need him to help me with the baby. And I was told, well, greet him at the door with a bigger smile. And then one time I was told, when I said it again 6 months later, hey, I really need help, really need support. I'm caring for our child all on our own, and I'm tired. And I was told, meet him at the door with a new sexy negligee. And then a few months later, I asked again, and I was told, we don't divorce in this family. Turks do not divorce. Marriage dies. I mean, love dies, but marriage does not. So figure out a way to deal with it. And so I did for a few more years. And then my breaking point came when it was mid-December 2009. And he came home in a rage, just frustrated with life. And he came in front of Mina, who had just turned 3 at the time. And he got in her face and was just like, I'm moving to Turkey and packing everything up. And are you coming with me? And something inside of me just crumbled. So I knew that I needed to figure a way out. And I told him, I said, we have 1 year to fix this, and I'm going to go to therapy, and you can join me or you can go to your own therapist. And it took 6 months for him to go to therapy. And by that time, I had already started processing out. I think that a lot of people have a misunderstanding that Divorcee Cafe is a proponent of divorce. It is not. I never wanted to get divorced. I didn't want to go to divorce, counseling. I didn't want any of that. I would have much preferred to have worked on our marriage to try to retain the family unit, but that just did not seem possible. So I think making the decision for filing divorce came after I saw that there wasn't any sort of reconciliation possible. I gave it a full year, and every time, he started to do something nice, once he started to go to therapy, I could see it. He got onto antidepressants, and I could see that his brain was opening up, and he started to see a lot of the problems. But at that point, I had already gone through 6 months of healing and therapy that I was already a little bit beyond. But it wasn't that I didn't take the time to acknowledge. I remember seeing the notes and going, thank you so much for a great meal, and going, that was really sweet. Does that change how I feel? And I would sit with that. And then it was like, no. And then, so I did take 6 months and try to do that. And making that decision to actually file for divorce is probably the hardest thing. Going through the divorce itself was another thing. I think you really need to take the time to vet your divorce lawyer. And I did not. I literally went to a function and was a mess and said, I finally made the decision. I want to get a divorce. And literally someone got a Post-it and wrote the name of a lawyer on a Post-it and said, here, call that person. And I did, and I didn't question it. And that particular lawyer was distracted because she was running for commissioner. So she wasn't as attentive to my issues that I would have hoped that she would have been. And so once you've already paid that deposit, you're kind of stuck. It felt like that anyway. And also, I think when you go through a divorce, you are absolutely at your most emotional low point and financial low point than you ever will be, that you really need to have a team of people that have your back. And that's kind of how Divorcee Cafe came to be, is that I didn't know that I had a lot of free services available to me that I could have looked at. And I wish that I had had people take a look at my decree and go, hey, did you budget in for healthcare? And I didn't. Did you take your divorce decree to a bank to have them look at the financial aspect to know whether or not the wording was correct? I didn't. And I got screwed with one word in the decree. For example, a basic decree has the words, when you're dividing retirement, X will get this portion of the retirement plus or minus the interest, gains, and losses of the market value, and Y will get X of blah, 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 with the same disclaimer at the end that will protect the individuals if there is gains in the market, so that they can get that. And if there's losses, then they don't have to pay that. That section was actually removed from my decree and replaced with the word exactly. So once it was all signed and done, my portion of the retirement gained about $5,000 in interest. So with my lawyer putting in the appropriate verbiage in the quidro, TICREF disbursed extra money. But because I had signed the decree that said the word exactly, I wasn't entitled to that extra $5,000, and I was taken to court for defraud. And I remember sitting in the court and I'm listening to the other lawyer talk about this horrible person who plotted and planned to delay. And I remember poking my divorce lawyer going, wow, that person sounds really horrible. Who is he talking about? And my lawyer went and said, honey, he's talking about you, that you plan to delay things in order to gain interest. I'm like, wow, I sound really horrible. Anyway, at the end of the day, I wish I had known that I could have taken my decree to a bank or to someone in finance to take a look at it and go over it for free and say, hey, this verbiage is incorrect. You need to protect yourself, and he needs to protect yourself. So this is another reason why when you're in a highly emotional state, not to make these decisions and have other people that are not emotionally involved in your situation to kind of look at your decree and give you some solid advice, because your family is subjective, your friends are subjective, because they're all emotionally involved and they're like, yeah, I want you to get all of it, or no, you don't have to pay any of it. So having that person who's completely objective and not related to family or friends is really important. The other thing that I wish I had had was someone outside of my circle to have taken a look at the decree, just to see how things could have been juggled differently. You know, for example, we did a step down alimony. So I never wanted a ton of alimony. I just wanted enough to kind of get me back on my feet and have it decrease as Mina grew up, so that, you know, the longer she was in class gave me more opportunity to go back to work. And we decided that every year it would go down $500, and that felt fair to me. However, if I was clear headed, or if I had another person and they looked at my decree and said, hey, honey, you know, your alimony is going to decrease in June, $500, and your child's going to be home. Can you shift that decrease date from June to September when she goes back to school, so you're not caught unawares without an ability to kind of make up the difference? Those little shifts, if I had had other people to take a look at my decree, would have helped and would have like at least eased the process, you know. And these are kinds of the things that, you know, my team will help you look at. And you know, and it's been very endearing to have people come in and bring all of their paperwork and be all in a cluster and be like, I don't even know what the first step is. And I think the first step when you decide to get divorced is to breathe and to take a minute to kind of settle in and try to take a step back and see where you're going to be, and what your goals are, because the goals shouldn't be sticking it to your other partner. You know, that's your child's parent, and you shouldn't be, as much as there's dysfunction and there's anger and there's abuse, and I get it, there's so much anger and there's so much sadness that you want to get revenge, you want them to hurt, and it's just not healthy. So taking a step back and go, at the end of the day, what kind of life do I want for me and my child? And what kind of life do I want, you know, as a co-parenting relationship with my ex? I don't have a co-parenting relationship with my ex. We text or we email twice a year when it comes to summer vacations and summer camp, and that's about it. That's not my choice. That's his choice. So I just respect that choice. I would love, and yes, I have a pie in the sky like vision that at some point the anger and the hurt will eventually go away, where maybe once a month or once every few months we can come together and have a barbecue because we're all in other relationships. We're not there yet. I think also the next step, if you're starting to think about divorce, is to really look inward at yourself and how you're maintaining your own self-care and how you're maintaining your health. Because if you are not eating healthy and you're not doing things to care for yourself, you're not going to make good decisions. You're going to make poor decisions because your head is cloudy with junk food, and you're not putting yourself first as far as caring for your body. I think that's one of the first things you need to take a look at. Other than that, I think it's really important to take some time and meet with some lawyers to see which one's a good fit, because not everybody is a good fit, and you need to know that up front before you pay the $2,500. Let's see what else. A therapist is always important, whether or not You have monthly sessions or weekly sessions. I think they are really important to give you a gentle kick in the ass to kind of get out of your own belief structure and to move towards healing. And maybe you might need a little bit of help, either medication or herbal supplements or something like that. That's completely appropriate because you're in the lowest state possible. The next thing I think I would take a look at is whether or not you want to stay in the family home. Um, I ended up with the family home, just he didn't want it. So that was easier. But I had also mourned that aspect of having to sell it. I was okay either way. And I was okay going, you know what, I love this home. I manifested this home, but I am ready to leave this home if this is the best thing for me and Mina. Holding on to things is not as important as moving forward. And I think being able to separate and go, yeah, I don't need this home. It's just a thing. I don't need this couch. It's just a thing. And being able to disengage from those things will really help you to move forward. So many times we get attached to the familiar that we don't want to move into the unknown. And then we just cycle and we circle in, this puddle of shit. And we just feel like we're drowning. But honestly, you're just in a puddle and you can stand off and go, oh, okay, let me shake that off. What do I really need? And I think that that's the hardest thing to kind of objectively take a look at when you're in the beginning of the divorce stages, is really taking a look at what you actually need, because you actually need way less than you think that you do. And you can give up a lot more than you think that you need to, because it's not healthy. And one of the things that I am a strong promoter of is moving forward and healing rather than staying stuck and cycling in the shit. And too often we hold on to things because they have memories, but they also keep us stuck. So when you start moving through this process, it's important to see where you're stuck and what elements around you are keeping you stuck, so that you can move forward in your life and create a new normal. Because if you don't start identifying those stuck areas or those issues that didn't work in the past, then you're just going to replicate the relationship and that situation in your next dating adventure or your next relationship or in your next job, because they manifest in different ways and in different situations. Let's see. What else can we talk about in the beginning? In the beginning, I thought that because we had come so far in communicating that would continue. That did not. I think that you need to expect that outside influences like family and friends are really going to play into your ex's relationship with you. And I think that was the most disappointing thing, was that we had come so far to communicate and get on the same page that so much influence, external influence, shifted him to where he became very angry and resentful. And that was never really my intention, since we had kind of come to a good place in the first few months after we had decided to get divorced and separated. I feel the lawyer had a huge influence on his being open to having a positive co-parenting relationship, because his lawyer was very father's rights and anti-mom, and would fill his head with all these scenarios that just weren't me. I wasn't ever going to steal his child. I wasn't ever trying to bankrupt him, and I think lawyers really play into the fragile mindset of the person. And that can really affect the co-parenting relationship as you move forward. I think also being open with, what your goals are as a parent, with each other, so everybody's on the same page. I feel lucky in the way that my ex and I are both on the same page as far as, healthy eating for Mina, regular bedtimes, school, work, and social activities. So I feel lucky that even though we don't speak, that intrinsically our value structure is the same as far as raising my child, our child, and that's important. I have, been witness to a lot of people whose exes are not on board as far as the kind of quality environment or healthy environment to raise a child in, with parameters and boundaries and educational stuff. So I'm lucky with that. I don't ever have to worry that he won't pick her up at school. So I don't have those worries. I have other worries and other concerns sometimes that pop up here and there and go, I probably wouldn't have reacted that way, but that's not my house, and that's not the way, that's not my environment, and Mina will figure it out. Yeah, I think that's kind of in the beginning some of the things that you need to be aware of. If you guys have any questions, feel free to kind of start posting them. If you do, I'm going to kind of wrap up and kind of recap what we went over right now. So if you're kind of showing up at the end, I started off by saying nobody ever wants to get divorced, and that it's important to take time with that decision. I think most people average 3 to 5 years from when they know they're going to get divorced to when they actually pull the trigger, and that everybody has their own breaking point. And if you see someone who is struggling in their marriage, you're like, oh, just divorce that person because they're not healthy. They're not at their breaking point yet. And it's not up to us to say, hey, it's time. They need to be time. I knew when Mina was 6 months old, but it wasn't time yet. It wasn't until Mina was 3 years old and that dysfunction was brought directly to her face. And I was like, oh, she sees stuff, and I need to remove her from that situation, and we need to get healthy. So everybody's on their own breaking point time. And then when you're ready to file for divorce, I would definitely vet a divorce lawyer, see multiple divorce lawyers, join Divorcee Cafe, and talk to a few different divorce lawyers, because you can get a half an hour or time when we meet in person again for free and kind of get a feel of if they kind of align with who you are as a person. What else? I would have objective people look at my decree. So don't just sign to be done. I think that is so hard to do, because you're just like, I'm ready to be done, and I just want to sign this freaking piece of paper and just be done and move forward. But that piece of paper affects the rest of your life and your child's life. So really take the time to go, okay, I need to find an objective person to look at this that isn't emotionally involved in my future, to see if there's any jarring inconsistencies that I'm not seeing, because I am not in a healthy state of mind. Let's see. The other thing in the beginning is to really take time for self-care, whatever that looks like. And that might be an extra cup of tea during the day, or taking your cup of tea to the bathroom and closing the door so you have quiet time. That is okay. Eating better. It's really important. I can't stress this enough, how much eating affects your ability to make decisions. I know that when I was together and we would eat a lot of heavy food and heavy meals, even though they were homemade, my head still felt very cloudy. And then once I separated and we could make more, raw or more organic food, my brain opened up and I was able to make better decisions. So eating healthy is super important when you're starting this process. Moving and just moving stuff out is important. So there's a few little steps to take that might seem a lot, but it will set you on a more positive trajectory as you move forward. Because I'm not going to lie, going through a divorce is not fun. It is unpleasant. It drags you through the mud emotionally. And it is probably going to be one of the most worst experiences of your entire life, because it's pulling up all of the issues that you haven't dealt with about yourself. It's pulling up issues with, childhood stuff. It's pulling up issues with relationship stuff. And at this point, now that these issues are brought up, it's whether or not you're going to face them and deal with them and move forward, or get stuck. So that's kind of where you're at. And then lastly, really focus on, I don't want to say taking your time to move through your divorce, but going through it methodology, that word, with a method in mind, and like plan it out, and try to take it step by step rather than jumping to the end, because you can't jump to the end to a better life. You have to take your steps, and you need to see what you need to do, because all of this is going to affect you and your child's life for the next X amount of years forward. So yeah, feel free to reach out and email me if you have any more questions at divorceecafe@gmail.com. You can go onto my website, divorceecafe.org. We're going to start having some more scheduled live streams coming up with the different facilitators to offer some support, where you can pop in and ask questions, get some support, get some solutions, get some action plan going, and at least create a healthy way of moving forward. So until next time, I will talk to you later. Goodbye.